Hello everyone, my name is Michael. I'm a solutions engineer at Algolia, and right now I'm going to show you everything you can do with Algolia. As you will see, there are a lot of different features that all fit together to build search and discovery experiences. So without any further ado, let's get started. So here is an example website that implements Algolia. One thing you can notice is the search bar is really the only thing that's visible right now. And there's a reason for it. We want people to engage with your website. And by having a website, you literally allow them to express what they're looking for. In my case, there's an author that I really like. It's Jack Kerouac. So I can just search for it. And as you've seen, at every keystroke, I get results. Let me do it again, this time with Jack Kerouac. This is really one of the power of Algolia. It's the speed. It's very fast, but also it's very relevant from the first keystroke. I don't need to type Kerouac entirely. I can just start with the prefix and Algolia will find results that are really popular that make sense to me for this query. And sometimes people have a hard time spelling Kerouac, and I guess it makes sense. It might be a bit tough to write, I'd say. So out of the box, Algolia is fully typo tolerant, and it works across languages. It's really agnostic when it comes to this. The reason it's the case is because we use it using the physical distance between words, and it works with plural as well, with space and concatenation. If you're looking, let's say, for ice cream. Do we even have books? Yes, some books have ice cream in the title. Well, maybe you want to put a space. We will still match in some cases. Sometimes you want to push a dash. It works as well. The reason is because the query is normalized when it comes to Algolia, so we remove all the weird characters just to make it as understandable for the engine as possible. But that's not the only thing. So if I go back to Kerouac, you can see that there's actually highlighting. And on Kerouac, we think this is really crucial because people can see where it matches. And that's very important because by knowing how to talk to the engine, they feel more at ease to engage and to ask more things. Maybe we want to search for something else. Maybe we like the Nintendo Switch and we want to see what's in the store concerning the Switch. Well, you can see books here, but you can also see products. Those are two different things, right? But from the same search bar, we're presenting different category of products. We like this experience a lot. It's called the federated search because it federates different type of content. And when people are engaging with your website, sometimes they don't know what they want. It's like when you go to a store, you're just looking at everything they have and you're trying to look for inspiration. That's kind of the same idea. You want a good understanding of everything that's possible to have so you can then deep dive into one of the categories. And let's do it now. So maybe I'm looking for products. I can see more by clicking here. So once I have selected the category I'm interested in, I can really deep dive into it. And we call this the faceted search experience. And the reason is because we have facets on the side. We have brands, we have categories. And I like to focus a little bit on it. Look, if I type something else and I just go game, so first you've noticed that as you type, but I want you to take a closer look to the categories, the facets. As I'm going to change the query, you can see that the actual count in the facets is changing. And this is actually why we call them facets. It's because those are filters that are contextual to the result list, which means that I'm never going to be presented anything that doesn't have actual results with the current query that is being typed. And this is very powerful because from a UX standpoint, you're making sure that every possible path in the search experience is actually something that yields the result. So I can click to Nintendo, I can click to video games, and then I can keep on searching. Maybe I'm looking for the Zelda. This one is a really good game. If you don't play it, I suggest you actually add it to cart because it's pretty good. So this is the second sort of experience. We've first seen the federated search, and this is the as you type faceted search experience. So as people are interacting with your search bar, they're actually giving you a lot of information. Remember the Nintendo, Zelda, Jack Kerouac, anything I type here is an information that I give to your website. It's kind of like a feedback form. And all of those information, we gather them and present them to you in a dashboard. This is our analytics dashboard. We have spent a lot of time building it so that it can be used as a foundation for a lot of different features that you're going to see. From a general overview, you can see the total number of searches. You can see the number of users that have performed the searches. But more interestingly, and maybe more actionably, you can see the no results rate. In this case, this is very, very high. It means 24% of the queries yield to no result. And this is something that we can take into account so that we can change it. And we can see how a bit later on. Other things that are really actionable and interesting are the CTR, which stands for click-through rate, basically the number of search queries divided by the number of people clicking on an actual search query, and the conversion rate. And this is things like adding to cart or buying. And this is an event that is sent by you, so you define what's the conversion rate. And something that is really hard to find in other search engine and analytic platforms is the actual click position of the item for a result list. So if I go back to there and I type Zelda, where did I click? Was it on the first result? Was it on a third result? In this case, it was on the first result. And this is critical because it allows us to know how relevant a query is. But enough for the generalities, maybe two things. Let's start with the popular searches. That gives you an overview of what are the most popular searches in terms of count. And that's really interesting because you can see, for instance, that a lot of people are searching for Pokemon Nintendo 3DS. They click on a 5 item with a CTR of 22% and conversion of 15%. And this is the number of queries. That's really interesting because we know that 5 is good, but is not really, really good. You can also see that On the Road, which is a book from Jack Kerouac, is also searched a lot. If we click on it, we could have more information. We know that people click on average on the 8.93 element record, which means that they, on average, click rather down the road, which is not insanely good from a relevance perspective. So we might want to go and to put those results maybe upper using some of the features that we have, such as query rules. Query rules allows you to create rule for a specific query to alter the behavior of the results. Let me show you. Going to this index, for instance, this is an electronics data set that we have. Here you can see that we have a bunch of products. If I go to the query rules tab and I create a new rule, we can say that if the query contains, let's say, phone, then we want to add a consequence. And we have a bunch of different consequences, but in this case, let's just promote a result. Let's promote some iPhone. And I want to say that this should be the first position. Maybe we can add another promoted result, and in this case, maybe a Galaxy phone. You can really decide which product you want to add based on your data set. This one we want to put in position 2. Now I can save. The rule is saving, and when it is done, we can go back to the browse part, which shows us the results. And whenever we type phone, we can see that one rule was applied. We can see which rule it is, and we can see the consequences that were applied. And this is the phone that we have promoted. We can see the small trophy here. And this is the other phone that we have promoted. We can also see the trophy there. The idea is, based on the analytics, we get some information about the relevancy of some of our queries. We can see some information about where people are clicking on average, and we can leverage this to create some query rules to allow us to put specific products that we think would make more sense for specific queries. There is, of course, a lot more when it comes to query rules. One of the features that I really love, let me show you. If we create a new rule, and we say the query contains, not phone this time, but something more like, let's say cheap, for instance. Cheap is an intent. When someone is typing, I'm looking for cheap phone or cheap cases, we don't really care about cheap being something that should match in the textual fields of the record, but maybe more, we want to add a new consequence, which would actually be something like adding a new parameter, which is in this case a filter that says I'm looking for a price that is less than 20. And this is really a random example. Once this filter has been applied, we don't really care about the word cheap anymore. We've consumed it already, so we can remove the word cheap from the query. Now, whenever someone is searching for phone, well, they get phone back. You can see some are really expensive. What if I type cheap now? Okay, so 2 queries were applied, cheap and phone. Phone, we know what it does. They're here, so they are pretty expensive, obviously. But then the other results, you will notice that each of the price will be less than 20. And this works across all the queries. So if I'm looking for cheap cases, well, I get cases that are pretty cheap. Maybe I'm looking for cheap phone cases. Then again, we got some cases and they are less than 20. This is one step toward intent detection. It allows you to put some intents that you know people are looking for. If you have movies and people are looking for the most recent movies, you can have the notion of recency. You can add the notion of something being good, like best rated. You can put all these intents and you can translate them directly into filters so that your search will become smarter. All right, so coming back to the analytics now, we were on the road query. Let's close this one. And now one thing you can see is you can actually sort the different queries based on some of the things. So let's say we're looking for the top queries in terms of count, so the most popular one, but maybe the most popular one with the click position being the highest. And this gives us some really interesting information because we know that people are looking for it, but also that the click position is very, very, very high. And you can also switch the CTR to know some queries with a very, very high count with a very low CTR and conversion. 45,000 count on this search query, Panasonic radio, 0 CTR, 0 conversion. All of those, we know we need to fix them. And how do we fix them? Well, we know the query rules, but it's not the only thing we can do. We can also create some synonyms. We can change the ranking formula, the way Algolia sorts the product. We can do a lot of different things. And this is exactly what the analytics give us. Actionable results, actionable information so that we can tweak Algolia to change this result. So I have just mentioned the ranking formula. The ranking formula is really important because it's the way Algolia sorts the results for each of the query that everyone is typing. If we go back to the test electronics example that we have here, let's see how the ranking formula is configured. So if I go to the configuration, we can start with the searchable attributes. The searchable attributes are each of the attributes that people will want to search on. If we go back to the record, we can see some fields are really interesting, like the name. People will actually look for Google Chromecast, for instance. The description, the brand, the categories, those are really interesting. Those are things people might type in the search bar. The price, people are not likely to type 35 or a rating or a popularity score. All of these, they're not good candidate for searchable attributes. Another thing that's not a good candidate is the URL. You don't want people to match results whenever they're typing HTTP. This is what we call the textual relevance, and the searchable attributes are part of it. Coming back to the searchable attribute, there's a notion of precedence. So right now, if someone types name or description or brand, or brand, it's more important whenever there is a match on name than if there is a match on description. And you can really drag them around, add some more attribute. You have complete control over this. But more importantly is, how does the searchable attribute fit within the global relevance scheme of Algolia? If we go to the ranking and sorting, we can see this. And this is the ranking formula of Algolia. You can see we have different criterions. That's a criterion, that's another one. Each of them have their type next to it, so all of these are textual criterions. What does it mean? Well, it's pretty simple actually. Whenever you're making query, so if you're looking for phone, we're going to match all the records that has a searchable attribute which contains the word phone. Then we're going to sort all of them according to the first criterion. Maybe some record will have phone without typo, maybe some other will have phone with one typo, some more will have phone with 2 typos. Within these buckets of results, there are what we call equalities, because obviously maybe there are a lot of results with 0 typo. The idea is to break these equalities, breaking the tie using the next criterion in the ranking formula. So we're going to break this equality according to the next criterion, and then if there are some other equalities, then we're going to break them according to the next one. And then we're going to break them according to the next one, and so on until there are no more equalities and all the results are sorted. You can think about it as a sort of cascade of different sorts that are applied one after the other each time there is an equality. And the really good thing about this is it sort of mimics the way our brain works. If you were to sort things, maybe this is how you would do it. Put things in buckets and then sort each of these buckets whenever you have some equalities. This is called the tie-breaking algorithm, and Algolia is one of the first search engines to actually implement this. And furthermore, each of the criterion here are almost proper to Algolia. You can really hardly find them somewhere else. Maybe attribute is something we can find in other search engine, and proximity, some notion of it, but all the rest is purely Algolia. The next thing, maybe the most important thing actually, is not necessarily the textual attributes, which are really important to match what people are looking for, but the custom ranking. That's what we call the business ranking. And it really matters to your business because you want to put all the criterions that make sense whenever there's a textual equality. So 2 records that are textually equivalent, you want to break them according to some other criterions like the margin, maybe the popularity in this case, the rating, the recency, anything that makes sense for you, you can add them there. So that whenever someone types something, even prefix-based, like for instance, K for Kerouac, you want to show results that have the biggest popularity, and whenever there's a tie on popularity, the biggest rating. As you can see, the ranking formula has a huge impact in helping your users finding what they're looking for. And this is not something simple, and this is not something that we do once and that is done. If I go back to the analytics, remember, these give us a lot of information. We know that those queries are not performing well. We know our ranking formula, and sometimes it can be quite tough to go in each and every query and just fix them using things like synonym and query rule. Sometimes we want to apply something that's more holistic, and this is where the ranking formula kicks in. So we know our current ranking formula, and we know it works for a lot of queries, but not for each of them. So based on this, we know at Algolia that relevance is something that it takes time. It's kind of an epic if you think about it from a software engineering standpoint. So we have created a feature called A/B testing. And the idea is we can A/B test different variations of the ranking formula. We can say that we want a new test. We can give it a name. We can give the indices that we want to test, so it can be our product indices. And then we can create a variation of this same index, what we call the replica in Algolia, and we can change the ranking formula of only the replica. Then we can decide how much of the traffic we want to send to variation A versus variation B, and how long the duration should be. Then whenever we create it, there is nothing to change on the front end, on the back end, anywhere in your code. Algolia will know that whenever a request goes to one index, we need to dispatch the traffic. in version A and version B. And again, based on the analytics that we have, the fact that we know the CTR, the conversion rate, the click position, we will be able to tell you which variation is the best one with a very high degree of confidence. And the idea is to always iterate on this. You always want to improve the ranking formula based on the analytics. And we think A/B testing is the right framework to allow you to do it in a data-driven way. Another benefit of the analytics platform of Algolia is the fact that based on everything that Algolia received, all the events that are sent by the users whenever they're making searches, we can create query suggestions. Those are suggestions of query based on the most popular results with the highest CTR and conversion rate. And while on desktop, the as you type direct instant result is very interesting as an experience for users to find what they're looking for, on the mobile sometimes it can be a bit more tricky. You don't have a lot of screen real estate. You have the fat finger effect. Whenever you're typing things you don't necessarily want to have. So by presenting them with suggestions of query based on the popularity and the analytics, we can ensure that we guide them into finding what they're looking for. Creating the query suggestion is pretty simple. You just go there and you create a new query suggestion, define the language that you want to support in your index and the source of your index. So here is the index name, and you can continue and create it. The last thing that I would like to talk about is personalization. Personalization is a very, very big topic, and the way we have tackled it with Algolia is very interesting. Again, everything is based on the analytics, which, remember, is really the cornerstone upon which we have built other features. The way personalization works is like this. If I go back to the book website that we were on before, here you can see that I'm logged in. Whenever I click on a book, we can see that we're sending events, what we call insights, to Algolia. That's an insight, opening a product page. It means we're interested in this product. Well, maybe another thing that happens is if I decide to, let's say, add to cart this one, we're sending another insight, and this is the add to cart event. Now if I go back to the checkout page, here, this is where I can actually buy what I have decided. If I purchase it, we're sending the checkout event. All of these events are things you send to us, and they help us and they help you actually build a personalization strategy. This all happens in here. So we have a bunch of events. We have sent a few, right? We have sent to the open product detail. We have sent the add to cart. If I click to the wish list, it sends another event. We can decide the relative importance of each of the events. So whenever we add to cart, it is very, very important. Whenever we add it to wish list, it is twice less important than the add to cart. And we open a product page, it's only 1/10 of what add to cart is. Then we can decide what is interesting to extract from the information, the object that have been sent to us. So whenever you're clicking on a book, you don't want people to always see this book at the top whenever they're using your search. That would be personalization, but done in a bad way. What you actually want to do is you want to show other books, maybe from the same author, from the same category, and actually from the same type of item, because it can be a book or it can be a product. And again, you can decide the relative importance of each of these queries. And what's interesting is here you can actually test some by sending some event. So let's imagine that the event is going to be, I want to add to the wish list. Let's go back with Kerouac, On the Road. So if I do this, then we can see that without personalization, this is the answer that you would get whenever you send a query to Algolia and the query is empty. And this is with personalization. So we can see things like Harry Potter. We can see actually more books. If I'm looking for the query road, for instance, here, without personalization, you can see stuff that are not linked to Jack Kerouac at all. But the first one with the personalized result is actually one from Jack Kerouac. And this is really important because as people navigate your website, go visit some categories, click on some products, wishlist some items, they send you a lot of information. And all of this, based on our analytics system, we track them and then we allow user to alter the ranking based on these results. So as you can see, Algolia provides the means to create engaging, fast search experiences. This is not easy to do, but Algolia makes it so that it's easier to focus on exactly what your business needs are so that you can provide the best results to the users. We have seen a lot of different topics ranging from purely search to the different UX that you can have to why the analytics are important. We have seen the query suggestion. We have seen the query rules that allows you to alter the specifics of each of the query. We have seen the personalization and how it's possible to send and learn from the browsing experience of your users in your website. And then we can see how it all fits together, how each part allows the bigger whole to be more impactful. And this is exactly what we want to build with Algolia. Let's start with the search, and then based on everything that users are doing, we provide you with information to make this search better. And we provide you with tools like A/B testing to allow you to improve and constantly challenge what people are finding on your website. So I hope this video was insightful, and don't hesitate. If you have any other question, we'd be thrilled to help you build the best search experience. Thanks a lot for watching.